Hi everybody, it's Dr. Eric Balcavage, and we're back for another edition of Thyroid Thursday. And I want to talk to you about how stress is having an impact on your thyroid physiology and probably having an impact on why your medical treatment, your functional medicine, thyroid management strategy doesn't work as well as you would hope it would. If you're the person who's been told, hey, your labs are normal, but you still have signs and symptoms, if you've been told that your labs are optimal with T4 and T3 and somebody's manipulated whatever lab value they care about into range, and they're saying, hey, everything's optimal, thyroid physiology is fixed, but you don't feel fixed and you're stuck in what I call thyroid purgatory, I want to talk to you how stress impacts your physiology, changes how you regulate yourself, and is the biggest reason why well-intentioned thyroid management strategies don't work to have somebody feel optimal and recover their thyroid physiology. So our body has the ability to manage a lot of stress at any point in time. But when the stress on our physiology becomes excessive, it triggers what we call a danger response in our cells and tissues. The body perceives danger, a threat. It could be an organism, it could be a toxin, it could be a lot of emotional stress, it could just be tons of life stress. But that tells the body we're in danger and we now need to defend ourselves. So most people would understand that if somebody was coming at them with a knife or a gun, that now I'm not going to eat food, I'm not going to go have sex, I'm not going to take a nap because I got to keep myself alive. But our cells of our body, our nervous system, our chemistry has the same danger alertness. And so when the cells and the neurology of our physiology senses some type of danger cues, our body shifts from what we call homeostatic regulation to what we call allostatic regulation. Now how the brain, the hypothalamus pituitary, regulates thyroid physiology becomes much different from how the peripheral tissues regulate thyroid physiology. So here's what is really important. So these two different operating modes, the low stress mode, we call homeostasis. And this means given all the stressors I have on my physiology, I have enough energy to do everything I need to do. And that could be a lot of stuff, and we're still able to maintain homeostasis. And when we're and our body's in a homeostatic state, then our thyroid hormone regulates in what we call thyroid homeostatic regulation, meaning thyroid gland makes sufficient T4, makes a little bit of T3, that T4 goes out into the bloodstream, it gets converted to T3 in the cells, there's plenty of T3 in the cells to run the metabolism of all the different cells and tissues in the body. And if the body needs a little bit more T3, it can ask the thyroid gland to make an addition, a little bit more. That's homeostasis. But when we have this excessive stress state, we call allostatic regulation, what happens is the body needs to shift energy to make more self-defense molecules, and it needs to down-regulate the less important systems at the time. Digestion, sex hormone regulation, detoxification, sleep. A lot of systems get down-regulated because they're not important for this immediate survival mode. Now, unfortunately, most of us don't realize that we're in an allostatic state because we've probably been in it for so long and it just feels normal. But when we're in this excessive stress state, T4 to T3 conversion is down-regulated inside cells and tissues. That's not broken physiology, it's adaptive, but it makes us symptomatic. There's a down-regulation of thyroid gland production of hormone. It causes us to have hypothyroid signs and symptoms. But this isn't the problem. This is a sign of a problem. This means that there's an excessive level of stress on the physiology. The body's trying to slow down the metabolism so it can protect itself and defend itself. But this is what makes us not feel good. When you finally get diagnosed with hypothyroidism and somebody prescribes medication to you, they may not be aware that there's a different mechanism, that there's two different regulating states. They just may assume that everybody would regulate in homeostatic state if they just had enough thyroid hormone, and they don't know that that person's thyroid physiology may not be regulating as if it's in a homeostatic state. It's in an adaptive allostatic state. So when you put thyroid hormone in, temporarily it can change lab values. It can temporarily change symptoms, but because we're still in this allostatic state, the body does what it did with the hormones we made adaptive, that we made innately. It decreases the conversion of T4 to T3. It increases the deactivation of T4 to reverse T3. It increases the deactivation of T3 to T2, and it triggers more down regulation of the thyroid gland's production of thyroid hormones. And so you continue to not feel good. You can continue to have labs manipulated into some doctor's predetermined range with T4, T3, a combination of those things. And once they've got their value, your lab value into their predetermined range, essentially you're being gaslit to say, hey, your thyroid panel's optimal, I've fixed you. And your body is telling you you're anything but fixed. So what happens? We have this excessive stress. This triggers our danger physiology. This shifts the body and thyroid physiology from homeostatic, low stress regulation to allostatic regulation. When we're in allostasis, we see a decreased T4 to T3 conversion inside the cells and tissues. This means there's less T3 in the cells. That means we're going to start to have hypothyroid signs and symptoms. We're going to see an increased deactivation of T4 to reverse T3. The reverse T3 isn't blocking T3, but if you're converting T4 to reverse T3 and not to T3, you're going to be more symptomatic. We're going to see an increased deactivation of T3 to T2, the deactivated form of T3, and we're going to start to see over time the increased thyroiditis and destruction of the gland. That's going to reduce the gland production. And so we often look at the outcome and think it's the problem. This is not the problem. This is a sign of a problem. And yes, you may not feel good with this. And yes, we might have to temporarily provide some hormone support based on how bad your situation is. But just manipulating these values with medication back into a predetermined range doesn't restore the fact that you're still operating in this excessive stress state. And it means that you're probably not going to feel good even though somebody's optimized the lab. So this is an adaptive change. It's not broken physiology. The body is decreasing thyroid gland production and conversion on purpose, not by accident. This results in signs and symptoms. It results in abnormal lab values, but manipulating a lab value into range doesn't change that you're still stuck in this danger physiology. So this is the body's optimal state. When I hear people say, well, I've optimized your labs, did you optimize their blood lab values for somebody who's in homeostasis? Or did you optimize their blood labs as if they're in allostasis? Or did you take a person who's in an allostatic, high-stressed situation and manipulate them to a homeostatic state, hoping that that would optimize their overall health and well-being? That's too often what's done. The people who are doing the optimization, we're going to manipulate your T3 into a range, don't realize that there's these two operating modes, and manipulating T3 into a range with high doses of T3 doesn't fix is like trying to fix a mold problem by just putting a coat of paint on the mold. That doesn't fix the problem. The mold isn't the problem. The mold is a sign of a moisture problem. So you could paint the wall, paint over the mold will be back in a couple days. It comes right through the paint. The issue isn't the mold. Somebody might say it is a problem, I can see it, but it's not really the problem. The issue is the moisture and what's allowing the moisture to occur and then allowing the mold to grow. So putting more thyroid hormone into a system in an allostatic state can change symptoms and labs temporarily, but it won't restore health. What do you need to understand? One, you need to understand what state you're in. Working with a functional practitioner may help you figure that piece out. Maybe you already know. If you know you're in an allostatic state, which you probably are if the thyroid medication isn't working and you've been trying to find the magic dose, then the next thing you need to do is stop trying to optimize your labs. Make sure you have enough thyroid hormone. Work with your practitioner to make sure you match what a gland might have made. And then if you still don't convert well, you need to address what's creating the excessive stress load, reduce it and eliminate it. And if you do that, that's how you're going to restore your physiology. That's how you're going to shift back from allostatic physiology to homeostatic physiology and help your thyroid physiology recover. Hope this helps.